Nausicaa. I'm from the Valley of the Wind.
He's quite spirited. Apparently, he didn't inhale too much of the jungle's poison.
Is that a fox squirrel? I've never seen one.
An insect did that.
That's right. And whatever lucky man becomes my husband will see worse than that.
Stop it! All this killing must stop!
You heard it up top. Get ready to go on quite the journey as we ride some ohms, fly through the sky, ride some bird creatures, kiss a little squirrel fox, because we're talking the one, the only, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, here on Normies Like Us with your hosts, Colin.
Yeah, the names are tough. I'll just do May-izaki. Yeah.
This is Lord Jacob.
Nice. We're in the Valley of the Pod.
Jakesica of the Valley of the Wind.
What is the evil princess's name?
Let me look it up because I don't have.
I had a hard time with the names.
Is it Stefan? Is it Stefan or Kel?
I'm not sure. I had a hard time remembering the names, to be fair. I have a list, but it's just the voice actors and characters' names, so that really doesn't help me because I can't put the name to the character.
Kushana.
Well, I'm Princess Colin Shana. There we go.
Yes,
okay.
There you go.
Nice.
Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. We're talking today. Hayao Miyazaki's second feature film. His first was his last before creating Studio Ghibli, founding Studio Ghibli, his animation studio. So this is the success of this movie essentially led to the creation of Studio Ghibli.
Wow.
Nice. And this is I didn't realize this at the time, but it was based on a manga he was writing. Probably extrapolate on that, but he started writing a manga in 82, Nausicaa, and then made this, came out in 84, and he kept writing it until like 95 or something, 96. So like 12 years.
Yep. Essentially, after making Lupin the Third, Castle of Cagliostro that we talked about last month, of course, he sort of wasn't getting animation jobs for a while and was like looking for work. And he's like, I need something to do while I'm looking for like my next big project. So we started making this manga, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. And like you said, it would be published all the way to 94, and he would take breaks during when he really got into the production of his movies. He would take breaks whenever one of those got going. So this film,
employers said you changed Lupin too much. We want Mamo back. You're in director's jail. You're done. You're gone.
Right.
I think he wanted to focus on like original projects and just wasn't getting the kind of work that he wanted. So he was like, let me make a manga. And then when he was publishing this manga, he was like, I never want it to be adapted into an anime or anything unless I'm the one that's able to direct it. So that's how they eventually were like, well, you can direct. First, they wanted to make like a series or like a 60-minute OVA. And he's like, what about a feature film that I direct? But it was really based on like the first two books of this because obviously the story wasn't complete yet. So he had a hard time making like a 3-act story for the film. And then, of course, the story kept going until 94. So there's a lot more of the manga that was never obviously adapted that came later.
Nice. Yeah. And so I think that this was, as we said, his first wholly original thing because Lupin was the test run and right before Ghibli, as Jacob said. And I had not seen this ever. This is my first viewing. How about you guys? What's your history?
Oh, that's wild. That's interesting. As we're about to point out our histories, I will point out that this is, of course, the return of our long-form series. May-izaki is done, but our coverage of Miyazaki continues. And as we said, yes, we're doing our second film here. I have seen this before. I think my history of it is, and I don't know if I gave my history with Miyazaki in a whole in the last episode, but the first film I ever saw was Princess Mononoke because my brother rented it. Then we went to Spirited Away in theaters. I didn't really understand it. And then when I grew up more and thought I want to explore and learn about this director, the first film of his that I rented to look at critically was Nausicaa. I remember going in thinking like, I'm probably not going to like this because I'm just a big Princess Mononoke fan, and this isn't going to have anything I'm interested in. And then seeing it and being like, oh, that was maybe one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life, essentially. So I've
Yeah.
always kind of liked this film. Jacob, how about you?
Yeah.
What is your history?
Yeah, I saw this movie a while back. It wasn't my first Miyazaki, but I did see it. And later, when I was trying to complete his filmography and just see everything that I hadn't seen, I watched it. And so that was a couple years back. But obviously, yeah, I totally loved it when I first saw it, and it's one of my favorite of his as well. And it's hard to, it's hard to pick a favorite out of his filmography. So I'm not gonna say it's my favorite, but it is really good. And if we did our animation draft, if we were allowed to draft Miyazaki films, this might have been a pick for me,
Wow.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, because it does have a special place in my heart, and I just love the vibes of it. I love the post-apocalyptic world that they live in. I kind of consider it.
Roly-polies? Are you a fan of insects?
Not so much, but actually,
Me neither.
Nausicaa as a character, she reminds me a lot of my sister. Someone who's very in touch with animals. My sister loves animals. She has, a dog. She keeps chickens in her backyard. She's collecting like reptiles and snakes and geckos and things. So she's always been a big animal person, and so she reminds, Nausicaa reminds me a lot of her with her connection to nature and animals.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is my first time watching it, and I really liked it. Not to bury the lead,
That's
but
crazy.
it's
You've
Miyazaki,
never seen it
so like,
before.
yeah.
And what were you expecting going in? Did you know anything about it going in?
I honestly didn't know hardly anything about it going in. I just figured there's going to be some wacky airplanes, and boy, were there. But
Yes,
that's
this
pretty
has
much
all
all I was
the
expecting.
this has all of Miyazaki's favorite things: aviation, environmentalism, anti-war themes,
Female
a
protagonist.
young female protagonist. So really, this is the quintessential. If you're going to show someone a Miyazaki film to sort of represent all the things that he's most interested in, this might be a good one to put on, just because
True.
I mean, there's other ones you could put on as well, but this one just has all of his major themes and everything.
Yeah,
So
and
I kind of consider it Miyazaki's Dune, which I also consider Princess
I
Mononoke.
knew I was
had
watching
a
it
lot
the whole
of
time. I just
thoughts
kept
like
thinking,
that.
Jacob must love all the Dune stuff in this. Yeah.
Yeah, the aesthetics of their masks and their what they wear and stuff, so cool.
Blue and bugs and desolation. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Sea of Decay,
I would
toxic
argue,
spores.
probably throughout the episode, I'll be arguing that this is maybe the anti-Dune, but aesthetically, it has a lot of
Yes.
Dune imagery, but I think thematically, it's kind of doing a lot of things in the opposite direction of Dune, which is interesting.
Wow.
And it's kind of like, I've seen Mononoke, and that's like a similar version of this story. Mononoke is kind of similar vibes to this template.
Yes, obviously, yes, he's very interested in nature,
Tendrils.
spirituality of nature. Yes.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed it, so I'm excited to talk
Tendrils.
about it. Just as
Absolutely.
a first-time viewer, yeah.
Should we jump in?
Yeah, let's jump in on our
Nausicaa.
little gliders.
The Valley of the Wind. Yeah, let's get on our gliders.
We'll go to the Valley of the Wind.
We're back here on Normies Like Us, where we're talking Miyazaki. We're talking Hayao Miyazaki, the master himself, and his second film, Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind. We talked about it, an adaptation of his own work. So cool, so exciting.
Yes. So as I was saying, he was releasing this manga, and what's interesting is, so this manga was coming out in Animage magazine.
Wow.
And the editor of that magazine, Toshio Suzuki, was someone that Miyazaki knew, and then later they had such a good working relationship. He was a co-founder of Studio Ghibli, and he's he's been Miyazaki's producer for the rest of his career. And actually, between last month and now, I watched a documentary about Miyazaki in Studio Ghibli called what's it called? The Land of Dreams and Madness. Right, which is on HBO Max.
On your letterbox, Jacob. I was wondering if you had any delicious anecdotes.
Well, definitely talk about it later, because this documentary took place during the production of The Wind Rises in 2011. But it deals a lot with Miyazaki's life and his relationship with Toshio Suzuki and Isao Takahata, who's the other main director in Studio Ghibli, who made Grave of the Fireflies and some other films. And he was working on Princess Kaguya. I have to look that up. Which he was making in the 20. Yeah, so they were kind of co-making those at the same time at Ghibli. And Toshio Suzuki is the guy that kind of keeps everything running in Miyazaki's life. So very interesting relationships there. But yeah, it was definitely a good documentary, so I recommend checking that out.
Cool.
So he was making this manga, and then he got the opportunity to make a feature film adaptation, which, of course, as I said, the ending of the manga wasn't finished yet, so we sort of had to condense the available story into a feature film length structure.
Yeah, we're eventually going to get Nausicaa Prophecy after Nausicaa 2.
Right.
This is just the first act, like the Dune movies. But
I am interested. Maybe
I hope so.
I do want to check out that manga at some point and see
honestly,
how the story continues.
Does she become a giant
if the
worm?
adventures are furthered, yeah, I would love to check that out. I would love to see some giant worms.
Yeah, well, I'm going to keep making Dune jokes, but yeah, if you like this movie, it's cool to know like there's a whole another like 8-9 years of manga to read the continued adventures of Nausicaa. So that's cool.
Absolutely, and I believe you can get an omnibus, full volume. Right? You know, the full collection, probably in a very nice, nicely packaged production and everything.
Yeah, and Miyazaki also illustrated it. It wasn't just his story. It was like he's doing it all. It was kind of his baby, so it directly translates to the screen because he was already drawing it, panel by panel. So.
And that's what's so great about Miyazaki with his films is that, of course, he writes them, he animates, like everything, all the art comes from him. He has animators that sort of, like he'll draw, obviously, all the reference or the base plates and then have animators who come in and do all the detail work and things like that of movement. But he's just the master animator because he's involved in all aspects of his films.
Yeah, and I had mentioned in Lupin, like he had a little bit of like, oh, I got to kind of draw Lupin how he's supposed to look, but the original characters for that movie were definitely like his style, and now it's a whole movie of just everything in the frame is Miyazaki's style, no compromises, and like this is like like you said, the intro to kind of all of his themes and visual and otherwise.
Yes, and I do want to ask you guys if you watched it in the original Japanese dub or the English dub, and there is 2 English dubs, but of course there was the original when it was, came to Western markets in '85. There was a Manson Showman Inc. Dub, but then of course Disney, in their partnership with Studio Ghibli in the 2000s, redid all the English dubs of all his movies with A-list voice cast. So in 2005 there's a English dub done by Disney, and that's the one you would watch if you were watching the English dub
nowadays. Okay, yeah, I did watch it in the original Japanese, as Miyazaki would have wanted, but so that's just how I watched it. How about you guys?
I will say yes, even if you're anti English dubs, if you're subs over dubs kind of person, the Miyazaki dubs are very high quality because they get these A-list actors. Like you have Alison Lohman is the voice of Nausicaa, big star from Drag Me to Hell, of course. But
Psycho. Do you know what she's up to now? She's all about like
she's like a Trump
biting a cuck, and selling like she has her own cryptocurrency, I believe.
Oh,
that's
wow.
great. That's great. But yeah, you have Patrick Stewart as Lord Yupa. You have Uma Thurman, Shia LaBeouf, Chris Sarandon, Edward James Olmos. So you have some big names in there, right? You also have
Uma Thurman is the evil princess.
Uma Thurman, yes. Kushana, Princess Kushana. Shia LaBeouf plays Asbel, the boy that Nausicaa meets, and of course Patrick Stewart is Lord Yupa.
Yeah,
that's incredible. I love Patrick Stewart.
He's a Dune connection as well, David Lynch.
He is.
So there we go.
And Mark Hamill.
Who does Mark Hamill play the father? The deceased father?
No, Mark Hamill plays the guy from Pejete.
Sure. Okay.
Whatever that country is called.
Pejete,
he plays like the mayor of Pejete.
I watched this in the original Japanese as well. I'm doing a little challenge to myself to watch those this way because I have not seen many Miyazaki films in the original Japanese. But how about you, Jacob?
Yes, I'm doing that as well because I watched all of them in English before. But for this one, for Cagliostro, I watched it in both, and then for this one, I wanted to watch it in both to compare the
Incredible.
translations because it's not just it's not always a direct adaptation of what they're saying in the Japanese version. So I find that interesting. But yeah,
Are
I
there
did
any
watch it in
notable
Japanese first.
actors in the original dub? No.
I'm sure. I'm just not an expert. Oh, and that sorry, the original English dub. I thought you meant Japanese. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sure
I
there's
think in
a lot of
the
Japanese
85 dub,
Oh yeah.
there's mainly like voice actors that you wouldn't
Okay.
have heard of, basically from the 80s.
That's like
Yeah.
probably some respectfully like low end localization, like independently owned. Like we got the rights. Let's do this thing as cheap as
Right.
possible.
I guess
just how it was in the 80s.
the
It's not
voice
their
of
fault.
Asbel, Cam Clark, was the voice of Leonardo and Rocksteady in the Teenage
No,
Mutant
still
Ninja Turtles.
nobody. I will say real quick, shout out to the God Squad, former guest X Kaida and our friend Tim, who anytime we talk about subs versus dubs, I always think about a rap that they did with their cool rap
Yes.
group, the God Squad.
They love
That's right.
Check out their music.
the anime raps, subs over dubs.
We don't
Yeah.
care on this podcast. Again, normies implying you'd probably devour it in the language that you can understand, so probably dubbed, but subs or dubs, I really don't care. Enjoy it however you want to enjoy it.
Yeah, especially with the, like Jacob said, the high quality voice cast. So the Disney redid, and then all the later films, you get Robert Pattinson, and starts at a cast. So
Right. I would say with Miyazaki, you can make an exception. A lot of purists will say, well, you want to see it in the format that it was intended with the Japanese audio.
But
I think our age group has a lot of PTSD tied to old Jackie Chan movies or Kung Fu Sha Brother movies where it's the sort of like mouth moving and then the voice comes out. Or what they used to do in anime was literally just loop frames. Like Goku would, hold on a close up a little longer, flapping his mouth because he has to get out a full sentence in English opposed to a very quick sentence in Japanese.
yeah, that's
I think
true. That's very true.
With live action, I'm very against English dubs in live action.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty crazy to try to watch a movie where they're dubbed over with a different language in live action. But for animation, you can get away with more because you can even have, like in Cagliostro, someone's back is turned to the camera and they're saying a whole paragraph of lines.
Drop some truths here, like a whole speech.
Yep.
Miyazaki doesn't do it that much. I would argue that you really can do either choice because it's not like the films are edited crazily when they are subbed.
No, again, they're very high quality English dubs too. So
yeah. So you watch both, Jacob? Do you have a preference?
Yeah, I think they're both good, but I think I did like the Japanese. Watching that for the first time kind of was a good way to experience it.
Nice. And I want to mention too, right before we jump into it, this is the first score that we get from Joe Higaishi. He's like a longtime collaborator, and it slaps. It's such a vibe.
It's
great
insane
music.
how good this music is.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking like this is a great movie. Like if you're someone who likes to do mushrooms or psychedelics or something, I'm not advocating for it, but if you're on mushrooms, this might be a crazy movie to watch.
Jacob, I wanted to ask you about that specifically. Is this film vaporwave?
Yeah, could be.
Is inherently all 80s and 90s anime vaporwave?
Well, vaporwave takes a lot from like 80s Japanese aesthetic, like city pop music. Like, do you guys know I'm sure Mike, what city pop is as a genre. It's Japanese music from the 80s. That's all. I don't know how you're not familiar.
Plastic Love. Come on.
Plastic Love. It's all been brought back in by vaporwave, where vaporwave will use these city pop songs like a slowed down version or a warped version.
Synth already, or that's what they're.
It's more like it's like jazz fusion. It's like imagine Steely Dan, but with like a female Japanese singer. Like that's what a lot of city pop sounds like. It's great.
I would say this vaporwave vibe, I generally tend to associate it with 80s Japan, like cityscape, as
Yeah.
opposed to fantasy realm. But like the music is pretty adjacent as far as the synths
It's
he's
like a
using.
car that looks like an old 80s car driving on a highway while like the
There's
moon
water in the
like
background. Yeah,
vibrates. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that's
correct.
what I see. And
I mean,
that's a
Vaporwave
lot of
has a
like how
lot
I
of
feel when I watch this movie.
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of overlap with cyberpunk in the 80s, like
Yes.
Yeah.
kind of just coming out, and like obviously post-apocalyptic becoming a thing with like Mad Max, the Road Warrior in the 80s kind of defining the post-apocalyptic aesthetic. And I think this movie, I don't know if Miyazaki saw the Road Warrior while he was making this, or he was just sort of parallel sort of inspirations, but a lot of the obviously like the masks they wear, like the armor and the ships and stuff. I'm getting a lot of just post-apocalyptic vibes, of course.
Yeah. Well, it is. They explicitly say there was some type of disaster, that there was like 7 days of fire, and there's like a wasteland now, and there's only a couple places where people are surviving, and there's the Valley
shots
of
of the
Decay.
what are the name of the fire giants?
Oh, I don't know, the giant warriors.
Yeah.
That
So
is
there are
called the
these
Giant
sort of-
Warrior. Yeah.
the
Yeah,
nuclear bomb sort of stand-ins for this post-apocalyptic tale that we're telling are these
Yes.
weapons that caused the 7-day war. Specifically, Jacob, back to your mushroom comment, I was thinking about the shot of them as we've got the text over sort of like describing what's going on, and you're hearing the la 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 la. Yeah, this
Right.
incredible, just vibey soundtrack, and you're watching these beings of fire with these ghost eyes like walk through just like a wave of destruction. I was like, this movie is hitting so fucking hard right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's got
is
the giant warriors. Like the Japan loves to have their nuclear disaster stand-ins being giant kaiju or monsters.
Destruction incarnated.
Yeah, you could say
Yeah.
Attack on Titan may have took inspiration from this movie with their giant monsters
warriors,
and things
yeah.
like that. Yeah, but I mean the ending, when I don't want to jump too far, but when the giant warrior is born prematurely, incredible scene too. But yeah,
What a
And that's
phrase
like
to say,
giving
when the
some
giant
Akira
warrior is born
vibes.
prematurely. It is Akira.
Yeah, I was really
yeah,
not expecting that.
absolutely.
But yeah,
Oh,
if
and
we wanna- go ahead.
here's a fun fact for you too. So a lot of young animators that kind of came up working on this movie that Miyazaki hired. One of these young animators was a young man named Hideaki Anno, who did work on this movie as an animator.
So much Evangelion imagery in this movie as well, don't you think?
Yes,
Mm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
and they would have, so you could say Miyazaki kind of discovered Anno, gave him his first job. I don't know if this is his first job. I shouldn't say that, but
What an early
it
job.
it
you'd
was an
assume.
early job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get Evangelion and Shin Godzilla all down the road eventually, thanks to a little bit of this work on the side. That's cool. Yeah, dog. Nausicaa. Do we want to kind of jump into the
Nausicaa.
plot here? Because we are set up in this kind of desolate wasteland. There's the poison. I'm forgetting the name of it because I can't remember any of the
Sea of
proper nouns.
Decay, the
The Sea
toxic
of
jungle.
Decay.
The toxic jungle. Yes, this has been. I'm sorry, and you said it's 1,000 or 10,000 years.
I'm not
Oh,
sure.
I don't know.
How
I think it's
far
one-
ahead.
It's in the
1,000
future.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the post-apocalyptic future. 1,000 years
1,000.
have passed since the
There
7
are-
days of fire.
Spores in the air that make it so no living creature can exist. And basically, in fact, the only thing that can are insects, which over this thousands of years have evolved into these gigantic carapace, and not just one type. It seems like every type of insect. And
All kinds
humanity
of giant
themselves-
insects in the jungle.
And
of course,
humanity has
Nausicaa-
receded and disappeared. But we've got
Yes.
this young lady who can venture out due to this sort of breathing.
Well, she lives in the she wears a mask, but she lives, of course, in the Valley of the Wind, as the name implies, which is protected from the spores because of the wind that comes into the valley. So the wind kind of keeps the air fresh there. That's how they're able to
filtration
survive
system.
in the Valley of the Wind.
There's a lot of themes of purification in this, obviously, and like flowing water, flowing wind. Like that's a big thing that we're going to be setting up. So yeah, the Valley of the Wind is very specific for why they're okay.
Yes. So we start with our heroine, the young Nausicaa, exploring the jungle, and this is a great introduction to this character because we see just how capable she is, how smart she is, and then we see her interacting with the animals, the giant insects, and we see her connection with the animals, and she's able, of course, there's a rider in the wastelands that's sort of attacked by a giant ohm, which is this giant insect monster, who's sort of in a blind rage, and she's able to calm it and turn it back to the jungle and guide it back where it belongs.
Yeah, this
So
whole intro
you learn a lot about her
sequence.
just in this intro. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's super well done. He shows her exploring, and then like using the gunpowder to open the thing, like, and then she fires
she's
her
like,
gun.
oh,
Oh yeah,
right.
well, like I'm just saying, she's not using the gunpowder or bullets violently. She's using them like in clever ways. Like she's always tried to
Yes,
do the peaceful path. How can
she's
I
very
calm the creature down?
anti-violence.
Yes, and that's
She doesn't want any
communicated.
animal harmed, any creature. She's sort of a pacifist in that way, which is what Miyazaki is essentially. And yeah, she comes across the exoskeleton, or I guess the shedding of this giant bug.
The
So
molting.
yeah, and she's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is great. This will be great materials for tools because it's such a strong like armor.
The
And
shell of an ohm, and she
the
gets this
eye is
little
great.
dagger out, and she smiles, and she smashes into it, and it really hurts her, and you realize she's smiling again, and she says, "It's so strong, this will make many great tools for the village." So she's this
Yeah,
incredibly altruistic character.
Yeah.
she's like,
She's
oh, look at
young,
this
she's
eye.
precocious, she's
Yeah,
dressed super cool, she has the coolest equipment and technology. I just think she's one of the
and her
most likable
glider.
characters ever. I was getting
Great character.
very strong Ray Palpatine vibes.
Well,
Hmm.
Colin, it's funny you should mention that because I was going to bring that up as well. The Force Awakens,
Uh-huh.
you could say was very inspired by this movie. Think about, when Rey is introduced, what she's wearing, the headwear she's wearing, and in her everything when she's on
Whole
the
scene.
sand
Exploring
planet.
a old Imperial Star Destroyer, yeah. Exploring some
Yeah,
place, yeah. Getting
I'm willing
tools,
to bet old JJ saw this movie and was like, I'm getting some ideas here
right?
for my Star
Yeah,
Wars.
from my Star War. I love this opening sequence though. Like I said, it's a great character, great gear. She's got her Boba Fett gun.
Yeah,
A fun sequence to protect Yupa from the Ohm. We get to see his little chicken things. They're cool. I think they definitely inspired the Monster Hunter Sacrets. Like,
yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
way
And
they
even they're
didn't.
wearing little masks. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's like a
But
wasteland there too.
Like,
But I love this opening.
and so Nausicaa, yeah, great character. Would you say that Nausicaa, is a Mary Sue, like Ray Palpatine?
here's the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think she's one of the best characters ever, and she does remind me a lot of Ray because she's good at a lot of things. She's fun. She's exciting. Like I said, she's extremely excitable. She's precocious because she's so young. Her bouncing back and forth with Lord Yupa of like, hey, you got this thing. Can I have it? Like to directly ask someone for a thing that they found and then to run to his purse and be like, remember me? I'm so silly. And then later when she says like, I'm scared that the rage inside me will consume me. You're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, this little girl with her problems. And she's got
Yeah.
this title that we'll talk about in this much bigger life. But I think she defeats all of that, Jacob, because I think they set her up with the writing so perfectly to not be a Mary Sue, and that the thrust of this opening film, or the plot of the film, is so perfectly defined in this opening scene where she says to the bad Ohm, you must return to your world. You don't belong here. And then later we see her crying over a baby Ohm, jumping ahead, spoilers. And we learn that this philosophy is instilled in her by the elders of her village who say that thing cannot exist in the world with us, right? You get this entire setup of what this entire plot is, which is this lesson that she has to learn that, like, no,
Yeah.
there is one world and everything has to coincide and live together, right? And I think by giving her this kind of like early fault up front, like, what do you want me to say? Yes, she's great at everything in this movie. She's an incredible heroine. She's great at riding her glider. She's great at saving the day. She's a great leader to her people. Like, but that's because she's a very well written character.
Yeah, I think she's good at a lot of stuff, but she's naive about the world when the
Yes.
movie starts, and there's a lot of hardships that come to her over this movie
Yes.
where her dad, the king, is killed and stuff, and she's sort of tossed into this world where it's like, yeah, everyone is like trying to fight each other and like kill animals and stuff, and she spends the whole movie like trying to get people to just stop fighting and like work together to like save the world and like stop harming the animals and stuff. So she's like constantly going up against people who are threatening some sort of
Mhm.
violence on the world, and she's like trying to stop it, but she might be a little naive when the movie starts, but she's very capable in many different ways.
Right. We do get pretty much this point is hit several times throughout the movie, and I'm going to make a Dune reference here where, fear is the mind killer in Dune, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times she'll encounter these creatures like, oh, you're not scared. You're not scared. You're only doing violent stuff because you're scared. Like, you're all right.
Right.
People, animals, out of fear, we will enact violence to protect. And so her thing is, don't be afraid. Let's just chill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we learn this. Yeah, so Lord Yupa is traveling through the wasteland, gets sort of attacked by a giant ohm because he had to fire his gun at one point, which startled the insect, so it started in a blind rage chasing him. So he's trying to get away. She comes on her glider, which we got to talk about how awesome her glider is and everything too. But she sort of leads leads the insect away, is able to calm it, and then goes to Lord Yupa and talks to him, and he's an old friend of her dad's and stuff, so they have they know each other. And then he shows her this young fox squirrel that he saved, that's this little baby fox squirrel that she's like, oh, can I have it? And at first it's sort of it's
Yes.
again it's afraid, so it's acting out of fear, and she's like, you're not afraid, it bites her finger, and she's still like, you're not afraid.
She doesn't
Smiles.
react.
Again,
Yeah.
what a great character. And she's just so sincere when she says, you're not afraid. It's okay. And the way that it just sort of goes, "Meow."
And then kind of licks the
And it
wound.
becomes
Like,
her
I'm
little
sorry. You're right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a sweet little scene.
And then she's got a little guy for the rest of the movie that just kind of
It does.
hangs out, sits on her
Another
shoulder.
Miyazaki staple.
She's got a little BB-8. Yeah, exactly.
Protagonist with little guys.
So we love it,
Makes
and
you love
that shows her whole outlook on life, that she's able to calm this little fox squirrel and make it her little friend.
Yeah, the rest of the film is her learning to do that as the stakes are ever increasing around her. Basically, it's like, how do I diffuse the violence?
Things are getting worse and worse. She's trying to hold it all together, and we'll talk about this prophecy and all this stuff, of course. I do want to say, so she's her clothes that she wears is very cool, right? She's got this blue like jacket skirt thing.
It's like
she's
khaki
got her
pants.
headgear. Yeah, I do want to say she is wearing pants. I mentioned it last month. She's wearing like tan, skin colored pants that at sometimes you could say, oh, I hope she's wearing pants with some of the shots in this
Oh, I
movie.
guess I never picked up on that. That's
No?
interesting. No.
That's good, because she is, of course, a minor. So it's
Yeah.
good that she's wearing pants, because sometimes it
is
looks
good.
like she's not wearing pants, because her pants are the color of flesh, basically. So it could be awkward if she wasn't wearing pants. She has this like skirt thing. So I just want to say that up top. That
For the
she is
record,
wearing
she's
pants.
wearing pants, shoes, the whole thing. But her little helmet, though, back to like the sick gear. Like her helmet with the little eye covers, like sunglass kind of vibes. The gas mask with the two tendrils coming down. Like, it's a sick fit. The hood and everything.
It is.
Yeah. And it looks
And
good
she's
on
got
the
her glider.
flapping in the wind.
Let's talk about the glider now, because she says to Lord Yupa, anyways, I had a great time. I'm going to go back to the village now. And she takes off on the glider, and he says something like, she is becoming a great wind rider or something, right? So we acknowledge that she is one of the best. Now, the way this thing works is you can hold it above your head like a glider, an actual glider, and jump off and sort of take off that way. Or if you get a launching mechanism, you can stand on top and activate a sort of booster and sort of fly around in a personal mechanized, almost Wright Brothers-esque early plane prototype look, but certainly much more effective.
It's almost like, the Green Goblin's glider or something.
Yeah. But you ride it standing
Very
up.
goblin-coated.
Kind of.
She's got this giant eye that she harvested from the Ohm. She's like, Lord Yupa, can you carry this back? I don't want to have to carry this on my glider. He's like, okay,
glass.
sure.
Yeah. It's hard on the
glass
glider,
dome.
she says, and he goes, okay.
Yeah. But that
she takes off. Yeah.
No, just even the way that's animated, because there's so much character in all this, as Miyazaki does. So she literally runs and jumps off the cliff and then like glides out. It's like fearlessness. It's like, she's really good at that.
Mike, character is such a key word here. I thought the exact same thing. The moment where she's running away from this entire sequence to get out of the cave initially, and she jumps down on a bug, and the bug, it's not like a cartoon. Like, it's not like the bug's eyes are gonna like shoot out or whatever. It's gonna go like awooga or something, but
Mhm.
it gives off this vibe that it's uncomfortable, and she jumps down
Or
and
she's
says,
like,
"I'm
"Oh,
very
sorry."
sorry for doing
Yeah.
that," as she runs away. And I thought in my mind, that moment of animation has more character and humanity and just sort of like interest in animation than the entire animated Super Mario movie has in the whole movie.
Yeah,
Sure.
and that's a little.
And
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, she's totally at home in this toxic world where she
Yes.
feels very capable, very comfortable
Yes.
doing whatever she needs to do, but she's very respectful of all creatures. So if she disturbs anything, even the smallest thing, she would, feel bad about it. And she has sort of a reverence and a spirituality for nature, and a respect for nature. So I think that's very important in her character.
Yep, yep. This is Save the Cat, the movie. But the animation throughout it, like there's so many good shots and sequences. It's basically, as the kids would say, it's aura farming for 2 hours.
Yeah,
Like the animation is incredible in this, and the
animation is
that
great.
detail.
The flying, and of course, so she's on her glider. There's lots of airships and things where every nation like has its own like warships that are like these giant planes and things. So there's just a lot of flying. There's like battles in the air. There's all kinds of animated aviation, which is something that, of course, Miyazaki is interested in his whole career. If you watch like almost all of his movies, has some sort of flying or planes or airships
It's
or something like that.
and it's for so long I just looked at it at the surface level of like, oh, this guy like likes airplanes. Like he just thinks like the idea of like traveling through the air is so cool. And
Yeah,
it is.
it is.
But it really wasn't until this rewatch where the opening of this film over the credits is this gorgeous tapestry that sort of tells this sort of like whole illustrious story post the history of like the world ending, right? And it sets up this prophecy that a angel in blue from the sky will bring salvation to the world or whatever, right? And I just
Yes.
really thought about like angels and sort of like what flight looks like in this now, and how like Nausicaa utilizes traveling through the sky as a form of like sanctuary and just like ascension and stuff. And it really is more that like Miyazaki sees like flight as purity. Like it's so interesting that he actually does
Yeah.
see it as like a religious thing almost. That he's like, yes, and if you're good, you fly.
And it'll be great when we get to The Wind Rises, maybe one of his most personal films that's all about that idea of like aviation is something that's like pure and beautiful, and we sort of corrupted it and made weapons of war.
Yeah.
Because Wind Rises is a biopic about the creator of the Zero planes, the kamikaze planes that the Japanese used in World War II. And of course, Miyazaki's father was an engineer who made airplane parts and stuff. So it's always been something very close to him. But he's like, yeah, this idea of like, I just want to make beautiful flying machines. But the only way to do that in a World War II era Japan is to make them for the military, right?
I think again that like so much of it is so tied to the earth is dying that he's like, well, I want all my good characters to ascend to heaven. I want them to fly. I want them to soar. And you're
Yeah.
like, yes, I get it, Hayao. That seems to be just what you want. Do you think he
loves it.
knows how to fly an airplane, or has like
Ooh,
been in a small
I
little
don't know.
machine?
maybe.
I mean,
Oh
yeah, I saw that
I'll have
documentary.
to look that
He
up.
was going to be flying in that, but this is something
airplane.
he's very interested in. Even Studio Ghibli. Ghibli is named after an Italian plane. The
Right.
word Ghibli is
Wow.
the name of
Do
the
you think he
Italian plane.
likes the Leslie Nielsen movie Airplane?
I'm wondering if he watched season 2 of The
Possible.
Rehearsal on HBO.
Do you think he knows
Yeah.
who Sully
He's flying at
Sullenberger is,
737.
Mike?
Of course.
Or Nathan Fielder.
Yeah.
Great hero, Sully Sullenberger.
I was saying The Miracle
Oh,
Over the Mojave. Look it up,
Yeah. Yeah, we love Nathan
love it.
Fielder. But
But
yeah,
planes,
Miyazaki, he loves flying. Yes.
No, and you think kind of the history of World War II and having to build the zero planes and like being around that, it's like also informs its um, pacifism that comes through in these movies
Yes.
too. So I like planes for
And-
good things, not for bad
Right.
things. And this movie is a lot about that too.
In post-war, there was the demilitarization of Japan, as dictated by the terms of their peace agreement with the Allied powers, where they had to basically sort of decimate their military so that they couldn't start any aggressive wars again for a certain amount of time. So just growing up in that world and how that sort of affected his outlook on life and his philosophy.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
And I can't wait to talk next month about Castle in the Sky, Laputa, Castle in the Sky.
Ooh, the
That has
one
a lot
I've
of
never seen. I'm so
Mm.
excited that we're moving.
That one
to
has some good airships and air pirates and things.
I would
like
imagine
that.
there's a castle up there too.
There's a
Oh,
castle that's in the sky, so
That's
dealing with a lot of the same themes, of course.
Right,
Yes.
which I think will be a recurring themes, plural. But I like that the airplanes in this, they're all distinct. Like every nation has very different kind of
Yeah.
visual design cues and stuff. Like there's a lot of cool
kind of
looking.
all look like bombers retrofitted. It's almost got kind of like a water world, reusing technology.
Well, the aesthetic is
yeah.
interesting because it's post-apocalyptic, but it's also sort of fantasy where there's kings and
Future.
castles and
Yeah.
like the people of the Valley of the Wind all have like these sort of medieval peasant clothes that they kind of wear and
You
things
got
like that.
windmills.
Let's meet them real
Yeah.
quick, because this is the next part here. Is Nausicaa returns home. We see the valley. We see this sort of air filter
Yes,
thing
the
that's sort of on
windmills.
the edge.
Yeah.
Most of the technology inside their village is windmill based, I'm sure, for most of their mills and such. And then we get the reveal here that upgrades again Nausicaa into all-star status. She's the princess of this village. She is
Yes.
sort of like the chosen leader. There is a king, her father, but
King Gil, who is
King
sort of
Gil.
dying. He's sort
He's
of sick. He's sick in
he's
bed.
dope as hell.
King Gil, and she's the princess of the Valley of the Sky. And the Valley of the Sky is sort of this oasis in the middle of the toxic jungle where it's protected by the winds.
Yes.
And so it's just this, they're growing crops and things like that. It's this beautiful oasis where everything is okay. The toxicness can't get in. The spores.
Lord
and all that.
Yupa arrives. Everybody cheers.
It's like
Lord
Gandalf
Friend of
in Fellowship.
It
Yeah.
really
about.
is. A friend of Nausicaa's is like, take this baby and name it. And Lord Yupa's like, I'll think up a great name. See you guys
His
later.
godfather?
And then
Yeah.
that's a great scene. And Jacob, you said that comment about how Nausicaa is so at home in the most dangerous parts, but what is truly nature. Then we get this constable or city guard who's like, oh, that's our Princess Nausicaa. She's always going out to
We
that
love
swamp
her."
that she's not supposed to. And she's like, but I love going out there. And he goes, she's going to be the death of me. And the whole town like laughs and cheers, which is really great.
Yeah.
And it again
That's,
just really sets up how great she is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Mito, who's voiced by Edward James Olmos in the English version.
Oh, that's a lot of fun. That's
Yeah.
really good. That's great casting.
We say in Lord Yupa, as I mentioned, Patrick Stewart, which I think is great casting for Lord Yupa. He's just got this big mustache. You can never see his mouth because his mustache
Here's the
hides it.
thing.
Yeah.
He's got a gigantic beard, which is his face, which is a classic animation trope. I
Right,
think
so they
even
don't
like
have to
Master
animate the
Roshi
mouth.
or whatever in Dragon Ball Z is that, right? Where it's
Yeah.
just like the whole
He's got a
thing.
hat. Yeah.
Here's the
You
thing.
barely see his face. Mhm.
The hat comes off at one point. If you paid me $1 billion to guess what his hair would look like, I never would have guessed. The reveal of
Right.
his hair is it's a black pompadour with the sides shaved. and
Yeah,
he's
like a
got this
mohawk
crazy long white beard. Yeah.
Yeah.
But don't you just
Looks
assume
great.
that he's a bald guy?
Well,
Something.
Patrick Stewart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was wild.
But Lord Yupa, he's known as the greatest swordsman in the land, as
That's
we
right.
find out later. So he's
That's right.
he's a great swordsman, but he's sort of a wanderer, a drifter who's trying to find the secrets of the toxic jungle, what caused it, how we can maybe
That's right.
get rid of it. So King Geo is like, hey, you should settle down here, and I'm not doing so well, so maybe you could come here and be
Pretty
a
much
leader.
done for me.
Yeah.
Nausicaa's my 11th daughter, and she's all I've got left.
Right.
Like,
There
yeah.
was I looked up some stuff from the manga, just a little bit, and I guess in the manga it's revealed that she is like his only remaining heir. Like there were other
Mm.
children who didn't survive, I guess, because
Oh,
of the poison stuff. You know what I mean?
right,
So
I would assume.
right.
it's a little
That's
bit
very
heavier in the manga, but it's just like, yep, just me and Nausicaa, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's a reoccurring thing with the adaptation is that the manga is a little bit darker at times, whereas
Yeah.
this is more geared to like, well, we want children to like watch this movie and not be traumatized as well. So let's kind
Yeah.
of make it kid friendly, but still, of course, there's still high stakes and there's still darker moments and things like that.
It's just so wild to me that all these films are pre-Totoro. That he actually did start at a pretty mature degree with things like
Yeah.
Living in This, and you're even saying that next week is Castle in the Sky. I always saw him as a start as a children's director and then went up. But
Mm.
but that's not the case, I guess.
Yeah,
No.
My Neighbor Totoro, which would be, of course, Totoro is sort of the image in the same way that Mickey Mouse represents Disney, Totoro represents Studio Ghibli, but
Mhm.
that wouldn't be until '89. So he made a couple movies before
Wow.
Totoro. Yeah.
Yep. No, it's interesting. It's like he kind of did a inverse, like a sine curve. It's
Yeah.
mature, like
And if
looping,
you
then
look
we
at
go
his
down to
career,
Totoro
Yeah.
and then come back up to like
right.
one. Okay.
Yeah.
And then if you look at his filmography, like some of them, obviously, like Ponyo and Totoro are more geared to
Hmm.
young children, and then there's some more mature ones like Princess Mononoke. So there's a good mixture.
The Boy and the Heron, that's for like 2-year-olds.
Still
Yeah,
not
they'll
seen that
definitely
one either.
understand that movie. Um,
But
yeah,
we learn about
so
the prophecy here. We meet the
yes,
grandma
a
lady,
figure in
Obaba.
The
blue,
woman, an angel in
Obaba,
blue will save us. Yes, we meet
another
the old blind woman.
Hmm.
yes, another anime trope of like the old wise woman who's like maybe some kind of witch or some kind of
Like,
seer who's seeing some kind of prophecy, right?
hmm.
Obaba.
Wise but sassy is
Yes.
typically the
Yeah,
trope.
wise but sassy. That's true.
Like,
And
I'm just
she's
an old
like,
lady. I'm not going to take any guff from you.
Gonna be the
yeah,
comic relief. Kill me, I don't care.
Yupa's not gonna settle down. You know him. He's just running
Right.
around. Yeah.
No.
But
Yeah, she talks about the prophecy of the figure in blue on a golden field who's going to save the world and reunite the world and put an end to the sea of decay and the toxic jungle and all that stuff.
and that's
But of
what
course,
Yupa wants
you're
to find the
thinking of a
secret of.
man, right? There's a
Yes.
tapestry that represents it. And it's a man in blue on a golden field and everything. So that's of course the twist is that the prophecy is going to end up being about Nausicaa.
What's the name
Um,
in Dune?
Oh,
oh,
Lisan
Lisan al
al-Gaib.
Gaib.
Isan al Gaib.
Nausicaa al-Gaib. Yeah.
Nausicaa Gaib. That's good. Mike.
Yeah.
But there's foreshadowing. Like obviously we know like where it's gonna go, but like it starts the movie in blue and has like a little golden little buddy on her shoulder. Like, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
But at this point we're chilling with the king, and then now we have some kind of alarm goes off. Like, oh, there's something coming this way, and there's a plane now crashing. Right?
Yes.
And this
Giant
is
plane. Mhm.
And you guys keep saying this stuff about other cultures and how there's these different technologies of warfare. I don't know about you guys, but the first time I watched this, and this time too, because it'd been so long, I was like,
Mhm.
oh, right. It's not just that, like, they're the lone survivors in this completely apocalyptic
Yeah.
wasteland. Like, there are
Mhm.
these
There's
other
different
factions and a
countries,
government
settlements.
trying to keep it together. Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
hear about these faraway countries that are more warlike, like the Tolmekians and the Pedjites and all these people that are somewhere else, and they're kind of all fighting a war, and they want to stop they want to put an end to the Sea of Decay by destroying it or burning all
Yeah.
killing
Right.
all the animals
The
and things like that.
spores and, yeah, defeating
Spores.
the ohms.
Kill them
Yeah.
all. It's there's a little bit of Starship Troopers, like, you know, like
Yeah.
that's their
Yeah.
home, but we're gonna
Yeah.
drive them out of it.
Mhm.
Like that's what the other countries
Yeah.
want to do.
We need it.
Well,
It's
that's their
scared.
natural reaction. How
It's
are we gonna
afraid, yeah.
right? How are we gonna put an end to this? Let's just burn it all, you know?
And Nausicaa doesn't
Um,
obviously want
the-
that to happen.
The alarm goes off, and Nausicaa takes off because she's the hero of this story.
They
And
say
even as
don't
the
do it.
king
She
said-
says, I'm gonna do it.
Well, she's like, guess what? I'm the most badass person alive. And she takes off in her glider. And this Telmekian ship, which, like I said, is almost like a B-50 bomber,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
doubled up as like a biplane, but with like future lasers and stuff. And it's almost crashing. So she takes her little glider and she's going by it. and she sees that it's actually covered in bugs, and she chastises them and calls out, they must have been firing, because again, we know that gunfire is the number one thing that draws these destructive insects of every kind to you. You can never fire a weapon, right? That's sort of the lesson going forward. And she's saying, pull up, you're about to crash. This incredible animated sequence where she locks eyes with the women through the window, and she's like, oh, and I'm
she sees a young
screaming.
woman in red, right, in the window.
I'm just like, get out. That plane is so big. You have to get, it's going to crush you. And this thing almost hits her. It hits a mountain and explodes. And Nausicaa's like, oh my God. And she lands and she's like, what the fuck happened? What the fuck happened? Basically,
Causes
the
a big
biggest
crash.
bomb in the world goes off. And yet still she finds this woman. And she's like, oh.
You see burning, and this is one of the darker moments because you see burning bodies in the wreckage of this plane. But then you see this young woman who's still alive. She rescues her from the wreckage and kind of takes her to a safe place. And she's like barely alive. She's like, I'm just, hanging out.
We see that she has handcuffs on. She's some sort of prisoner.
She's the princess from Pedjit or whatever.
That's right.
She says, please, whatever you do,
burn the cargo. Yeah, destroy the cargo. And then she dies, basically. So
what a fucking
Nausicaa's
setup.
like, what the fuck? This woman just died.
They're pulling no punches. It's like she locks eyes like with this relatable young woman, and then immediately plane crashes and she's gone. It's like, oh shit, the cost of war.
Yeah, same age as Nausicaa too, around the same age. They're two young women that are very similar in age and appearance. And she says, destroy the cargo. We find out the cargo, and the reason why this plane was crashing was because they have the giant embryo of one of these giant warriors, these like age-old giant monsters from the 7 days of fire from that were supposed to be buried and never come back. And now the Tolmekians are trying to bring one back because it's such a powerful weapon. And they want to destroy, the world or whatever.
It's Fallout. We nuked the planet. Well, we'll never do that again. Yeah, but what if we nuked the planet again?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. If we nuke it back into fixing it. But the Tolmekians, we learn about the Tolmekians, a warlike culture. They've got an army. So while this is happening, there's this big crash. These other Tolmekian planes come, and they land in the Valley of the Wind, and they send out their troops. They rush into the castle.
Ground invasion, yeah.
And all of a sudden they're attacking the Valley of the Wind.
Can I ask, is this a conquering, or is it literally that? Is the Valley of the Wind sort of like a satellite village that operates at the discretion of this much larger, dangerous
kingdom? They're kind of they're like a neutral
and independent
kingdom where they're just kind of chilling.
Switzerland.
But then this warlike country comes and says, like, you know what? We are conquering you now. They run in, they kill the king, King Geel, who's just lying in bed. And they're immediately like, okay, look, we basically own you now, so pretty much give up, or we're just gonna like kill you. And Nausicaa sees that she glides back to the castle. She's like, oh no, they're attacking. Also, we have to talk about how the troops look and everything, how cool their armor is and stuff.
Yes. They're very medieval, like full plate armor, but also they have
it's almost
some
like
guns.
It's like in
but
this world, like
Power Rangers-y.
Yeah, but it's like I think metal doesn't exist in this world anymore. It's like hard to get because they even say like the armor and stuff is made out of ceramic, like the blades are ceramic. So they're using ceramic.
My ceramic blade, yes.
Yeah. Or insect parts or whatever you can get, but I think metal is just very rare and hard to find. But Nausicaa sees this. She's like, "Oh no, they killed my dad." She goes into this rage where she's like, "I'm just gonna start like fucking up some Tolmekians." She starts fighting these guys in armor and like kicking their ass. And then Lord Yupa, she's about to come in and like kill another one. And then Lord Yupa jumps in and it's like, and like stops her blade.
In the arm.
Yeah. He's like, look, Nausicaa, if you attack them now, they're just going to kill everyone in the village. But if you go along with them, then we can kind of bide our time until the moment is right.
Can I jump just very quickly ahead to the part just because it made me laugh so hard, where the village finds out that this evil princess killed Lord Jarl, and they all scream and cry, and one of the guys goes, "He couldn't even do anything."
Yeah, he's just an
It's
old
like,
man,
well, yeah,
old
he was
sick
just
man
an
laying in
old
bed.
sick guy. Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
already dying. Yeah.
It made me laugh
Essentially, yeah, they
so
just
hard.
run
I
in,
was like, that
kill
is
the
true. He
king.
is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we own your stuff, Grandpa. Bang, bang. It's like, well,
They
yeah.
could have
I
just let
mean,
him stay in bed. Yeah, you didn't have to kill him.
But we
oh,
meet the princess of the Tolmekians, Kushana, who's this warlike princess. She's got like some sick golden armor and stuff.
Which is
yeah.
indicative of status if Metal Air's wearing. She's got all this gold armor and stuff.
True. Very
you know?
true, Mike. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I?
And yeah.
Well, Jacob, was Uma Thurman dope?
Yeah. Yeah, she's
Okay.
good. She's the voice of the Kushana in the English version.
That's cool.
I want to underscore the Yupa getting stabbed moment as we're meeting Kushana and stuff. That's a mirror, obviously, to the fox squirrel scene.
Right.
Because she's acting out of fear and anger, and Yupa's like, no,
He
like,
starts
bite my
bleeding.
arm. Exactly. And
Yeah.
she realizes, and that's when she has that line a little bit later where she's like, I'm scared of what I will do when I'm angry. Like, that. This kind of establishes that.
It goes into this kind of rage. Lord Yupa jumps in between them, and at once is holding his dagger to a soldier's throat, and then also stopping Nausicaa's blade with his arm. It's starting to bleed, and he's like, "Look," and also he's like, "Look, we just like saved your ship that crashed. Like we just tried to like save as many people from your ship as we could, and this is how you like treat us. Is like you're conquering our village while we like saved your crashed ship. That's kind of fucked up, And Kushana's like, yes, we own this now. We're going to we own you. So check it out.
Give us your guns and chill. Yeah, we'll let you
Yeah.
chill, but give us all your weapons.
They want the bug. They want the right?
And it's too big for them to transfer. That ship was the only one big enough to fly it. So they're like, how do we get this out of here? What the hell? So yeah, they're kind of occupying to figure out that situation.
Yeah.
So to atone and stop the bloodshed, Nausicaa's like, everybody stop. I will go with them. They can use me for whatever plans and agenda they need to push forward.
We want 5 hostages to come with us. Yeah.
Right. It's like her and a bunch of old guys that are like, oh, princess, we'll do anything you say.
Yeah, you're the best. Yeah, so they get basically loaded up on a transport ship with Uma Thurman.
The Tolmekians. Yeah, they've got the Tolmekian fleet, basically, a bunch of these ships.
And they take the gunship. She's like, I want a gunship, I want 5 prisoners, and I want a bunch of like, shit that you guys got, and load it up.
Right.
And that gunship looks cool as heck. I just want to point out another new plane.
Very cool. Yeah, that's the 2-person little ship that we see. And Kushana's like, look, we're the greatest army in the world. We're going to destroy the Sea of Decay and save the world. And Nausicaa's like, I don't think that's how you should do it. Like, you should listen to me. And they're like, no. We're going to do it this way. And we've got the giant warrior. We're growing him. He's going to save the world, basically.
Yeah.
This is another interesting Miyazaki recurring motif, right? We see this in Princess Mononoke. Ashitaka is obviously the lead of that movie, but then you have San, I believe her name is. Is that right? The actual Princess Mononoke herself, the wild woman. You have a sort of heroine princess who is one with nature,
raised by the wolves,
raised by wolves, versus Lady Hagame, I think, who is sort of the capitalist, who is the sort of leader woman, not aristocrat necessarily, but talks about imperialism in a way that like clashing with nature, but leads from a perspective of I am doing this for the betterment of society. And that's
doing it for the right reason. And that's what's so interesting with this film is that, and Miyazaki said, like, there's no evil people in this movie. There's people who do evil because they think it's the right thing to do, but everyone has their own motives, and everyone's trying, in their own way. Like the Tolmekians are trying to save the world, but they're doing it in a way that's bad. So there's no evil.
You can't use weapons, you dumbasses. And the Tolmekians live in something called the Great Dome.
Interesting.
And we see they're at war with the Pedgites, which is another society that's sort of warlike. but not as strong as the Tolmekians, and that's where they have the princess who was handcuffed in their plane, and I think maybe they stole the giant warrior from the Pedgites. Is that right?
That's
That
possible
would
for
make
sure.
sense.
And then
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
effective setup because having the Pedgite princess, even if she dies, informs that they will be coming for revenge. They will follow them, and they're going to be showing up
Oh, yeah.
soon. Right before we take off, though, I want to mention we see the night before she has to leave her little garden that she's been making because she's figuring
that's
out,
right.
oh, you can
Secret
regrow
garden.
the plants.
Yes.
They're not toxic if you use clean water.
Did you know that good soil actually makes good vegetables? And
Yeah.
Lord Jupa's like, no, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Right.
Yeah, she has this secret garden like underground that has the pure water of the under the valley and the soil that's untainted by
Waterfall.
the spores. Now,
Mhm.
what's crazy is if you know Dune, if you've read the book Dune,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's not in the movie, but this is a very similar. There's a very similar secret garden scene in Dune. Again,
Mm.
they cut like
Really?
they cut it out of the movie because it's not super important. But Lady Jessica, Rebecca Ferguson, right,
Mhm.
has a secret garden within their like compound because they live on, of course, Arrakis, which is a desert planet that doesn't grow much plants, right? And they, in the
Mhm.
movie, they do have those palm trees where they're like, look, we gotta, this water could,
Oh,
you know, satiate 100 people, but instead we're watering the plants with
we're
it.
bringing
But
palm
basically,
trees.
yeah. So there's a very similar secret garden scene in Dune where Lady
Wow.
Jessica goes to this secret garden that meant, it's kind of a hidden room within the castle. So it's interesting that this scene is there
Weird.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's definitely plot necessary here because it shows that, oh, she figured out that there may be a way to rehabilitate, you know,
Yeah.
the Valley
She's
of the
like, look, I'm
Care.
growing all these
Yeah.
plants, these non-toxic plants. Like it is possible.
But
So Lord
she's in
Yupa's
a
like,
little bit of a
oh,
low. She's like, I'm just gonna shut it all down. This is dumb. They're invading. Everybody
Yeah,
wants to
this
kill
never.
everything. It's not even worth it. She's kind of like, man. But yeah, I was
yeah,
doing the plants anyway.
poor
Um,
Nausicaa.
so that may come up later. So,
Right.
uh,
But she goes with the Tolmekians along with some other captives, and they go up. They're flying in the sky, and then they're attacked, of course, by like a fighter plane, who starts just gunning down ships.
and they're getting destroyed quickly. Like it's a single
Yeah,
fighter taking out these giant bombers. It's like it's very rapidly going downhill. Like, oh man, they're not prepared for this at all. Um,
yeah,
it's a crazy
and it's
sequence.
this. We see the pilot. It's this young boy, this young man, who's attacking the Tolmekian fleet, and essentially the ship that Nausicaa is on is crashing, and her and Mito are able to escape in their little fighter ship plane. And at the
Hmm.
last moment, they see Kushana, and again we see Nausicaa's character. She's like, she could very easily just leave without her, right? But she's like, come with us, like I'm saving you. This is your only chance. So they go out in this little plane, and they land in the jungle, right?
Yeah, they have their buddies towing behind them in a little kind of a dinghy, for lack of a better term, another little plane.
Yeah.
And then the gunship, and they end up crash landing in the jungle. They make it to, they land in the water. They land do a water
They
landing.
say in a
Captain Sully.
spot where they wouldn't have to have their masks on, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
So they
And they land in
land.
the middle of the toxic jungle in this water. And they land, and then immediately Kushana is like, check it out, I got this pistol. What's up?
It's got a lot of gold on it. Yeah, she's like,
Yeah, very fancy looking pistol. She's like, look, I'm in charge now. And they're like, look, we just saved you. Like, now you're turning on us. She's like,
Yeah.
yes, what did you expect?
and I
Uh,
like Nausicaa just being like, no, you're not in charge. You don't know anything about this place.
Yeah,
You are
shoot that gun.
unprepared.
Yeah, she's basically like, if you shoot that gun, like a million insects will immediately come over here. You don't know what that's going to bring if you fire that gun. So no, you're not in charge.
Hmm.
And Kusana's like, oh shit, okay.
And,
Maybe
and
you're
I
right.
do like, I think she was at one point holding the gun next to her face, like, you're not going to do shit, but she wasn't moving the gun away. She's like, I don't
No.
care. You're not going to.
Yeah.
Very badass. But she shoots the gun anyway
Right.
because she's stupid.
Yes.
And then Bugs
Doesn't listen to
comes.
Nausicaa. Yeah.
And then she immediately is like, I shouldn't have done that.
And I'm trying to think, they sort of get separated, and that's when Nausicaa goes to look for something, and that's when she meets Asbel, right?
Yeah, she says, if I'm not back in an hour, get this thing fired up, go back to the village. You guys
Yeah.
get along now with Kushana. Yeah, figure it
Is
out.
he's being attacked by a flying bug? Is that what's going on? I can't remember.
I can't remember
Yeah, I
that
think so.
circumstance. Oh man,
Yeah.
we're bad. But
It's hard to remember all the details, but yeah, she leaves to go rescue him because she's like, oh, I saw him sort of crash land somewhere around here
Yeah.
too. And of course, he's the pilot of the fighter plane that was taking down all these ships. So she goes to rescue him, and she learns that he is Asbel, the twin brother of Princess Lestel, who is the young woman that died in the plane earlier. So she's like, oh, you're her brother. Okay.
The
And
princess
also, we
of
should
the
say at
Jack-
one point, he's attacking the plane and he sees Nausicaa and he thinks it's Lestel. Like he sees like a flash of Lestel, right? His
Yes.
sister.
that's right.
And
he
that's
decides
why it's
to
important
stop
that
firing.
they look similar, because these Pedgite people keep thinking that she's Lestel, and she's like, oh, she's the princess, right?
Yeah.
She is, but not.
Yeah.
Right.
We
And
get
so this guy, Shia LaBeouf, in the
Mhm.
English version.
Shia LaBeouf.
God
Yeah.
bless. The
right,
he's the
return.
prince of
The return of
Pedgite.
Sam Witwicky to this podcast.
That's right.
That's right.
Number puzzle in my head. Just before that, though, she does do a avatar and kind of communes with the bugs to be like, we mean you no harm. And that's why they
Yes.
back off. And then Kushana's like, okay, maybe I'm just going to shut up and hang out with these guys.
Right. She's always talking to the bugs, and they can put out their little golden tendrils, their little feelers, to kind of see what's going on, right?
And they like fully
But she has
cocoon
this
her up,
bug
and everyone's
charm
freaking
that
out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
all wrapped around her.
Yeah, but she's totally
She's like,
calm with it.
oh,
Yeah.
this is our friend Nausicaa. We're gonna be nice to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then she goes off and meets Astel. They have like a
Right.
prolonged chase sequence with the glider and stuff. They end up crash landing into the quicksand,
They
and then the quicksand.
Yeah, they fall through the quicksand underneath the toxic jungle,
Mm-hmm.
and they find out that there's this whole area down here that's not toxic, and there's regular like trees growing or whatever. They're like, wait a minute, there's plants and things growing down here. This is safe from the spores and everything. And that's kind of reaffirming what she learned from her little garden.
Good
Yeah.
soil, good plants.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, now with this information, there may be a way to rehabilitate it. So now her goal is to get back before everything hits the fan, because she learns from Astel what the Pedgite nation was going to do. And they're like, all right, let's check on them. We got to stop them
Right.
from doing what they're going to do. You know, they're going to retaliate or whatever. So they're like, all right, we need to stop the killing. Let's hurry.
Yeah. So they head back to Pedgite to try to see what's going on, but they find out when they get there that the whole city's kind of been devastated by insects and things. There's the swarming ohms that are attacking, right?
Oh,
mhm.
this is the Great Dome. The Pedgites live in the Great
The
Dome.
Great
Yes.
Dome. Yeah, they have destroyed the Great Dome, even the Ohm
that's
habitat.
Yeah, it's been overrun,
Yes.
and they run into some Pedgites, and this is the Mark Hamill character in the English
Oh,
version.
really?
He's like the leader of the Pedgites. Yeah.
That's
And
fine.
he's like, look, yeah, they kind of destroyed the city. We're getting ready to like go attack the Tolmekians because they're bad, obviously. And we have this plan to use a baby ohm to lure a swarm of ohms that's gonna like kill everyone. So like this is a genius plan. And Nazca's like, no, that's horrible. Like you're torturing like a baby ohm and like hooking it on this thing and then leading the swarm. And she's like, please don't do that. And they're like, nope, we're doing it.
And
So
we're taking you
This is where she
prisoner.
has the flashback to her own little baby Ohm experience.
yeah.
Yeah, you can't have it in the village, correct? She's trying to keep it. And then, she's going to be prisoner. They're like, we're taking you prisoner. We're doing the baby own plan. I don't care what you say. You're a prisoner now. And then Astel pulls a
Yeah.
gun and is like, let her go. He's trying to be on her side. They knock him out, and she inevitably ends up on the plane
It's like,
as
look,
a
she
prisoner.
just saved me. Maybe we should listen to her. And they're like, no, we're not listening to her.
Well, and he's like,
And
yo,
so they're
there's
like, oh,
water and stuff under there. I think they're trying to say, hey, we could do plan
Yeah.
B.
Yeah.
But they're not listening. They're like,
Live.
no, we need to destroy the Tolmekians.
They're afraid. Yeah.
Yes, they're acting out of fear, just like the fox squirrel and just like the ohms and everything.
Everything
It's a
else.
mind killer.
Exactly.
Fear is the mind
Um,
killer.
Yeah. I don't know. I kept thinking about
And
that
so
in this movie.
they take her prisoner on their airship, and they're traveling towards the valley where the Tolmekians are, the Valley of the Wind and everything. They're going to confront them, and then some Pedjite citizens break her out of jail basically, and they come in. They're like, okay, look, here's a young woman who's like the same age as you. Switch clothes with her so you can escape.
Yeah,
and she'll
and
stay in your cell.
Yep,
Yeah,
and this is Astel's mom. He's like, he told me everything that you guys went through. Like, we're gonna help you out. So that's kind of, she gives her a hug. Thanks.
we see kind of like the citizens, the women and children of Pedjite are kind of against the men who are like soldiers, and they're like, we're doing our thing, and they're like, no, we don't want to do this, but we kind of have to because they're in charge. But they're secretly letting her go. Just like, go do your thing, take off in the glider. And so that's how she kind of escapes, but she's wearing the clothes. She's wearing the Pedjite clothes now, right? And so she's wearing this like red.
Yes, a red
pink
dress.
Yeah, the sort of pink Pedjite dress.
Pink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. With a little hat. And then they sneak her to the glider, at which point she flies out. And
would you guys believe that the music that's been playing by this point goes la 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 la?
Heck yeah.
Right. And we see, her sort of vision or her flashbacks of whatever of the golden field, right? Just
she's
like
having
the
visions
golden
now.
tendrils of the Ohms. Yeah.
Yep. Is she going to warn? Is she going to warn them now?
She's going to try to stop.
First?
Well, there's the one. There's like the little flying thing that there's like two Pedjite soldiers. They have the baby Ohm kind of hooked up, and they're leading this pack of Ohm in this little flying vehicle. It's like just like a little bucket that they're riding in, right?
It's like a Koopa Bowser Jr. little car. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, look, and they start shooting at her, right? As she like approaches on her glider, they're shooting at her, and so she's like, oh, shoot her down. And then she gets close enough. Again, they see a vision of Lestel, their princess, and they're like, okay, let's not shoot her. And then she's like, look, don't be doing what you're doing, right? They're like, no, we're going to do what we're doing.
Right.
She's shot by this point.
What's that?
She gets shot in the arm.
She gets shot a couple times. Yeah. So she's doing everything she can, but
she basically stands on the glider. She has her arms out, like, don't shoot. A non-violence pose. She gets shot in the shoulder and the foot, and then jumps into the Bowser Jr. car and ends up crashing it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very hero-like, where she's like, I'm doing this, and I just have faith that I'm not going to die. But it works out. They sort of crash land, and she's like, look, stop, whatever. Stop using the baby Ohm. It's wounded. And then she gets the Ohm's blood on her, right?
All over.
Yeah. And she saves the baby Ohm.
Dyes her clothes blue. So she's
the blue blood bleeding out of these insects dyes her whole clothes blue. So now she's wearing blue again.
She drinks, I believe, the water of life and gets blue eyes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Wow. She allows herself to get pushed back by the baby Ohm into the acid lake until she sustains injury to her foot, and the Ohm realizes,
like, don't go
she
that
has
way.
my best interest in mind. Okay.
Yeah.
And
she's trying to save this baby, this wounded baby that's bleeding, and eventually, it kind of puts out its tendrils again, its golden tendrils, and is like examining her injuries and stuff and kind of healing her.
Yep.
And
then the group is coming. They're approaching. All the raging Ohms are coming, and they're like, "Okay, the baby's here. Just come get your baby. It'll be okay."
Yeah,
but they're so enraged
in front of them
that they don't.
They just kind of run. They trample over her, and she goes flying up in the air. Kind of lands in the pack of Ohm. And then also we have, of course, Kushana and the Tolmekians are kind of in this standoff with the Pedjites, and they're like, "Okay, we're about to attack." And we find out that they're bringing the giant warrior who's been kind of growing in this embryo, like underground. It's premature, but they're going to bring it out to use its weapon. And this is where we get this sort of apocalyptic scene where it's like the giant warrior coming out of the ground and shooting its blast or whatever out of its mouth. But as it's doing that, it's like actively falling apart.
It's
and
turning
it's-
into the blast almost. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like using all of its
Yeah.
energy on this blast, and it's just like its skin is melting off. You can see like its
Disintegrating.
bones and stuff. It's a crazy scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very
Very
Akira.
normal.
Yeah,
Very chill.
very chill.
Yeah, very Akira, very Evangelion or whatever, just like this apocalyptic giant monster scene.
Mhm.
But it blasts the ohm and it kills a couple of them, but it doesn't really do that much damage, and it can kind of only do one blast before it completely falls apart.
Yeah, it really
And-
didn't work out. I got
Yeah.
the
Nope, not
mature
at all.
side. Totally ineffective. Yeah, for how
Why did
hyped
you
up
do
it
this?
was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then we get
Because Kushana is still stubbornly like, no, this is the way. Like, I'm not listening to Nausicaa, even though she's been right this whole time.
About everything.
I'm still in charge. We didn't even talk about Kuratawa, who's like her second in command of the
Oh, yeah.
Tolmekians, who like when he thinks she's dead, he's like, oh, this is great luck for me. I'm moving
Actually,
up in the world.
Starscream.
Starscream, exactly.
Yeah.
He's doing a Starscream.
And then immediately when she comes back, he's like, oh, I guess she wasn't dead. Okay, back to being second in command, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's
She
Chris
does-
Sarandon in the English version.
Mhm.
Oh, is
Jack
it really?
Skellington himself.
That's fun. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And then, there's been also some other side stuff where the spores have been spreading, so they have to give the farmers the tools to stop the spores, but then, of course, they use the tools against.
So yeah, the spores
Tolmekians.
actually infect some trees in the Valley of the Wind, and the people are like, "Oh no! Like it's spreading! Like we're gonna have to burn
The
down this
wind
whole
stops
forest."
blowing. It's never
Yeah.
stopped blowing. That's right. When all the violent stuff's going to go down, it's like the earth itself is like, nope. So yeah, the wind has stopped, and the spores that are here.
Right. You have to burn down the whole forest just to save the rest of the valley because it's spreading so fast.
But then they're also leading insurrection against the Tolmekians while the bugs are still coming, while the gun didn't work. Oh my gosh! And what is Nausicaa doing there with the baby omens? Now she is dead. Like nobody knows what the hell to do.
She kind of gets flung up in the air. She lands in the ohms, but then all the
Mhm.
ohms, they're like, calm down, and they use their little golden tendrils. They wrap her up and they sort of
Mhm.
resuscitate her, bring her back to life. And then she's wearing the blue. She's on the golden field, and the prophecy is fulfilled. And she is the chosen one, of course.
Mhm.
She is Lisan El Gaib.
The
That's
violence
right.
stopped.
And Obaba sees and it's like, oh my gosh, the prophecy.
Well, she doesn't see. She says,
She says
"Describe
that in
it to me."
Japanese. Yeah.
But yeah, because
Yeah,
I
she's
can't
like
see.
blind.
Yeah. And so like everyone's like, oh shit, we should chill. The bugs chill out, and
Yeah. And the
it ends kind of
kind of
abruptly.
forget what happens
though.
right at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, like we get
It ends
extended
kind of
sequences over
abruptly.
the credits.
We get
Again, I
another
think
shot.
because of the. Yeah, go ahead.
We're pushing in, and we see that plants are growing. That
Yes.
she is
the world
fixing
is
the
coming
world.
back.
Yeah.
And the Tolmekians agree to leave, and I think the Pedgites like stay and help rebuild the valley. And it does kind of end abruptly, but it's like, oh, Nausicaa is going to be the chosen one and save the world. But again, with the adaptation of the manga, of course, the manga was still being written. So this is really like the first 2 volumes, I think. So there wasn't really a clear ending. So Miyazaki had to like make an ending, but it does feel a little abrupt in the way that it ends.
Right, but we do get the montage over the credits that does seem to imply that because she's got big brain, they're like pumping now water from the deep core to like, clean up the toxic stuff, and under her leadership now, things are improving and no one's doing violence.
That's right.
La 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 la.
Exactly.
Oh, the prophecy is fulfilled.
Yeah, the prophecy is fulfilled. It is very Dune, but the anti-Dune, because her whole thing is let's not do violence, which is very different from Paul Atreides' plan, which is let's do
Right.
violence.
Let's commit
Right.
genocide.
Yeah, it's the
Oh,
opposite.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is what's so beautiful about Miyazaki's outlook on life, where he's like, Nausicaa saves the day by being the most non-violent person in a world where everyone wants to be violent and
Mhm.
destroy their enemies. And she's like, look, let's all just like get along. That's like what she's saying the whole time. And no one listens to her, but finally they listen to her. And yeah, it's a very Japanese way of like, it's a very Buddhist, spiritual way of looking at the
Zen.
world, right? And Zen, being at one with nature, at one with the animals, like that's the harmony of this world, right? We don't need to be burning things and blowing things up.
Yeah. Do not destroy as much as possible. I think it was a really good call that the Ohm and all the antagonistic air quotes creatures were bugs. Like they're not cute. Like they look. It's like Starship Troopers. They look monstrous. Of course, people are going to be scared of them, but you need to have compassion for things that even seem monstrous to you.
Yeah. If you saw one of these giant bug monsters in real life, you would be afraid of it. Like you wouldn't want to befriend it. But Nausicaa, she just has this pure soul where she's like, no, all living creatures are worthy of respect and love, and I'm going to, bond with them.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing out of fear, not because they, want to kill you, but they're just afraid.
Yeah, don't be bug prejudiced, people. And that's
the
reverse Starship Troopers. Like they're celebrating. It's afraid.
Right.
Whereas Nausicaa's like, oh, you're afraid. Let me help you, baby.
Let me carry you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the anti-fascism, because the fascists of Starship Troopers, this is like the opposite. So they're the anti-fascists.
Yes. Compascists, I would call them.
We love them. And Nausicaa,
That's the word.
Yeah, Antifa in the Valley of the Wind.
And what a great character Nausicaa is. I love her. She's such a great character, like just such a well-rounded,
should be a
capable.
Great ruler.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to check out the manga at some point and just see where the story goes, because I know there's a lot more
like to know
factions and characters and things within that story. Like this is obviously just the beginning of the manga run, so there's a lot more stories, and I just know there's a lot more factions and things like that.
And the fact that he kept doing it for so long, it is kind of his baby. It's like the first thing that he was writing and illustrating, first one that he directs that's fully his, and then he just kept writing it because he liked that world that he created so much,
Right.
Probably worthwhile.
He was inspired, Miyazaki was inspired by The Lady Who Loved Insects, which is a Japanese tale from the Heian period.
Gross.
Which is 794 to 1185.
Nice.
About a young princess who's considered to be eccentric because even though she's of marriageable age, she prefers to spend her time outside studying insects, right?
Yep. And that same practice would lead to the creation of Pokemon eventually, so
thank God.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's
Pokemon
true.
was from
just love going into caves
bugs.
And looking at bugs, right?
That's right. Spelunking and bug looking. This is also the same year as David Lynch's Dune. Not to do another Dune connection, but 1984.
Wow.
Yeah.
84.
Yes, I'll take your job on your alien desert apocalypse movie.
At least he put the space.
Patrick, which one? You have to make a choice. I'll do both.
Right. Yeah. Well, technically, he didn't do this until 2005. Right. When he did the
I remember when that came out. It was when I was doing a separate desert apocalypse movie.
Yeah.
Miyazaki
wouldn't remember.
Said, Nausicaa being a young woman, being female, is very important to the story, because if he's doing an adventure story with a male lead, he said we would have no choice but to do sort of an Indiana Jones thing, where he's much more aggressive, right? So making her a young woman is just very important to the story. He's not just a protagonist who defeats an opponent, but a protagonist who understands or accepts that someone is having a different perspective on the world.
Yeah.
I agree that she would have more empathy than a man. I don't necessarily think that a man couldn't have empathy, so that is interesting phrasing.
Right.
Well, Miyazaki, he's comes from a different generation.
Am I remembering correctly, in that documentary, Jacob, is the other animator the pregnant woman, and he's like fascinated by her? Is that the other Miyazaki documentary?
It might be another one. Yeah, there's a couple different documentaries that.
But he's
that
like,
I
what? But you'll have to stop working. And she's like, no, I'll just have the baby and everything's fine. And all his partners are like, he's obsessed with her. He acts like her father.
Yeah.
Like, does not seem to understand in certain ways.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, like Miyazaki, he's he comes from a different generation, and he says even in this documentary, like I'm a man of the 20th century. The 21st century like confuses me and scares me. I don't want to learn
Oh
it.
no.
Like I'm
Oh,
happy
wow.
living in the so he's like basically the whole movie is just saying like I'm too old now. Like things are changing in the world.
I'm
I don't like
scared.
it. Yeah.
I'm so
Mhm.
scared. Here's the
So
thing. The menaced, assholes who say things like, well, there shouldn't be a gender bent James Bond. Like James Bond should always be a man or whatever. And
Mhm.
that women should strive to have these female characters like Ellen Ripley or Sarah Connor, who are just like a cut above.
Mhm.
They there is sort of an inherent sexism in that the things that they like about those women are that they act like men. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like that they are like strong badasses, quote unquote.
Masculine
Again,
quote.
not
yeah,
saying that women can't be strong
there's different
badasses,
kinds
but
of strengths.
what they project out is that Nausicaa deserves to be in that same conversation. And the reason she's not is because she does project exactly what Miyazaki said, which is feminine empathy and energy. But she is a heroine who is so active and so proactive that she is one of the best written female characters I've ever seen. You don't even
Yes.
have to draw it to gender,
I think
honestly.
Mm.
she's a great character, and yeah, that's what makes her different is that she's not just blasting people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She has one scene in this where she picks up like a machine gun, which is a very cool
And
scene when she's
shoots at the feet of these guys
just to
after
like threaten
she's
people to make
already
them
been
do what she
shot.
wants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
even then,
true.
she doesn't want to use violence, but she will as a last resort. And even when she attacks the soldiers that killed her
Yes.
dad, like she goes into this rage where it's like
There's a rage
she has
inside
these
me. She
brief
says.
moments where but most of the time she's like I'm not going to be violent, and that's why
Yeah.
I'm different, you know.
Mhm. Like,
um
yeah. And
but I
that's
agree with like the whole like should there be a female James Bond. I kind of agree that like instead of a female James Bond they should create an original character. Like why do we need to take these characters that
Yeah.
were always men and then just gender swap them? I'd rather they write good original characters.
Yeah. Named Jane Bond.
yeah, yeah.
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 That's an
Joan Wick,
original character.
the
Yeah,
ballerina now in
Joan Wick.
theaters.
We invented that. Yes, called
Yeah.
From the World of John Wick Ballerina.
Yeah, yeah.
Are we gonna do that on this podcast?
I don't know, man. Let's
Uh,
ooh.
that's a good
Yeah.
question.
Violence is
see.
bad. We'll see, we'll see. But I love Nausicaa. That's my first time seeing it. She's a great character, and again, I love that she is aware of her own capacity for violence and is scared and cautious about it. And it's like, I don't like violence anywhere, but I admit that I am also capable of it, and I need to be careful. Yeah.
Well, let's ride those winds, Mike, over to our
Mhm.
final thoughts because I'm very excited to hear yours as a first time viewer.
All right, let's do it. Just put down those guns.
We're back here on Normies Like Us. We are wrapping up talking about the Valley of the Wind. Who lives there? Well, this girl Nausicaa. And in fact, she's
Nani?
from the Valley of the Wind.
Yes.
There's a
yes,
funny moment
indeed.
when someone's talking to Kushana, and then in the Japanese version she just says "Nani," which means
Nani?
like "How dare you?" basically in the
Nani?
subtitle.
Mm-hmm. Great.
But I love that moment. "Nani?"
Nani. We love a good Nani. And we love a good Nausicaa. I like this movie a lot, I guess, to kick off final thoughts. First viewing the other day, and it got me thinking about something that is usually written about in terms of video games. And it's like in 99% of video games, the only verbs you have as a character are violence. Like, you
Yeah.
must use a sword, use a gun, like jump on a mushroom, like same thing with a lot of media. Like, oh, we like Ellen Ripley because she's a badass and blew an alien out an airlock. And to have this, that's just, I'm not doing any of that. You know,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just through
different way
radical
of
empathy. Like that's what's so
looking
cool
at the
about
world.
Nausicaa. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Usually our heroes are always blasting things.
Indiana Jones, shoot the guy
Um,
with the sword. That's cool, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is so different.
My favorite Japanese thing of all time is One Piece, and
Mm.
I can see the influences of Nausicaa
Mm.
on One Piece very specifically.
Mm.
When she leaves to go to her village the first time, the Lord, what is his name again? What is Patrick Stewart's name?
Lord Yupa.
You
Lord Yupa says it's a strange ability that she has. He's sort of musing out loud to himself, and he's talking about empathy. And there is a speech in One Piece that a specific character says about Luffy, where he says to himself, "It's a strange ability that he has." And then he continues the thought and says, "The ability to rally people around him." And I think it is the same thing that Nausicaa is utilizing. It's not even just leadership. Again, it is empathy. And it is interesting that we keep talking about that so much.
Yeah, mainly knowing One Piece from the live action Netflix version, which we do all like, but I think Luffy's power of radical friendship, where he's just like, I'm going to befriend someone and thus make them, my ally instead of my enemy. It's very similar to what Nausicaa does.
Yeah, even Kushana comes around a little bit at the end. She still is like, oh shit, giant bugs are coming, unleash the weapon, but she's chilling with the dudes taking off her arm, like, check this out, Pretty crazy, right?
Release the embryo. I just never want to say that in my life.
Release the embryo. Yeah, I think to go back to the gender of it all, it's interesting. Like you have Nausicaa, and then you have the main antagonist, Kushana, is a woman.
And the inciting incident is a different third princess.
Yeah. Yes, a lot of princesses, and the male characters are really regulated to more supporting. You have like Asbel, who's like in a more typical story might be the protagonist of this young fighter pilot guy, right? But here
he's Finn.
He's Finn, yeah.
Disney releases movies where their princesses can read, and they're like, isn't it crazy how progressive we're being? That like we even think these girls can do math or whatever. And Nausicaa like fires a gun in this like multiple times, and it's like I have to like destroy society so I can rebuild it. And you're like, oh my god.
And again, the Rey Palpatine of it all, where it's like you have this character of Rey. And first of all, is Rey a Disney princess?
Yes. Yeah.
And second of all, of course, Rey.
Ripley now.
When Force Awakens came out, it was somewhat controversial. Of like, oh, the main character is going to be a young woman named Rey. And there's a whole discourse about, oh, Rey, is she a Mary Sue? She's so good at everything. She can use a lightsaber. She can fly. Blah blah blah. Of course, very stupid discourse and everything.
Right. We're just supposed to believe a woman can do all those things that a guy does in the first movie? Yeah, right.
Yeah. Who does she think she is? Man. Luke Skywalker?
Yeah, who does she think she is? The hero of these movies?
Yeah, Luke showed up first day, blew up a Death Star. He's not a Jerry Sue. Come on, dude.
Right.
Can I say, I ragged on JJ last week in our Mission Impossible episode and said he's my least favorite director of all time. I love Force Awakens. And specifically,
I think it's pretty good. Yeah.
I think it's so much fun. It's obviously Last Jedi's better, but it's got a special place in my heart where it makes me feel like a kid seeing Star Wars again. And half of that is the charm of Daisy Ridley.
Yes. I think it's a great introduction to those characters, even though like Rey and Finn and Poe, they might not live up to their potential of what they could have because of the way that, like, I think that's the problem with the sequel trilogy is I like the first two installments. It's just they kind of ruined it all with the Rise of Skywalker. And so it's hard to talk about. But yeah, Force Awakens when it came out was good. Like I think everyone enjoyed it. Like it wasn't trying to be too new or original. Like it was basically a remixing of the first Star Wars, but in a way that everyone kind of liked, because they're just like, yeah, this is great. Remember Star Wars? It's back, and it's
to this day still the highest grossing domestic movie ever made, I think, right? Not including international box office.
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. There's some hype around it.
And that was just a more innocent time before we got The Last Jedi, all the discourse around that, and then Rise of Skywalker, and pretty much everyone universally hating that movie. And again, that goes back to like, oh, Star Wars. Disney didn't know what they wanted to do. They had too many cooks in the kitchen with JJ and Rian Johnson wanting different things out of their movies, and the motivations of all the characters changing like every movie. So there's a lot of problems with that trilogy as a whole. But I think The Force Awakens definitely works in isolation.
I saw a meme. I was on Popular on Reddit today, and I got the Andor subreddit, which again I wouldn't know.
Never seen it.
I haven't
Ooh.
seen that. But it was all these scenes where characters were saying their iconic lines, but then turning and pulling out lightsabers, and I just kept thinking about how much Ex Kaido would have liked that.
Just all lightsabers.
Not enough lightsabers. By the
Yeah.
way, Colin, I will say,
Yeah.
I see in your letterbox rewatching Rogue One, but still refusing to watch
I wonder
Andor.
why
Made
it
me
was on
so
there. I
mad
wonder
when
why
I
it was
saw that.
in the cultural zeitgeist. I wonder why my
Yeah.
whole letterbox was blown up with people rewatching Rogue One. And it was on Hulu, which again, I don't have Disney Plus. So the only
Right.
reason I was like, oh, a Star Wars is on Hulu. I was like, I'll watch this. Click.
The whole point is you have
Nice.
to watch all of Andor and then watch Rogue One.
Then
It's the
get the
final.
payoff.
It's the series
It's the
finale of
series
Andor.
finale.
Wow.
So anyway,
Um,
I was so mad when I saw that. I had to call it
I
out
know. I'm
because
so happy
it
about
just
it.
Fair.
I'm
just makes me so
trolling. My
angry.
letterbox is slowly gearing towards trolling Jacob now.
I like it. I
Yes.
like it.
Just
Mike, did you do a letterbox review of Nausicaa?
I have a drafted version. Like I've started writing initial thoughts, and I am going to publish one after we're done with this. So I'm going to continue with at least reviewing every Miyazaki movie and creating a list as we
Wow.
go. I think this is another 5 out of 5,
Excellent.
though. I put
Yes.
Cagliostro at 5. This has to at least be that good.
Wow.
It sucks that like before we watched this, in my mind I was being so mischievous, and I was like, when we do our rankings at the end of this, I'm gonna put Lupin so much higher than those guys think, and I'm gonna blow their mind. And
Yeah.
then I watched
It's
this movie, and
hard.
I was like,
Yeah.
fuck, this might be the movie that I have to put so high.
That's the
Yeah.
thing is like you think, okay, this is his best movie, but then you watch the next movie and you're like, wait, this is also great. So I'll be interested
Yeah.
to see how many of his movies you don't give 5 stars or 4.5 or whatever, because
Yeah.
truly it's like, yeah, Castle in the Sky. I don't like that one as much as Nausicaa, but you could still make an argument that it's great. And then I mean, you're getting into when you get into Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away and Howl's
It's just
Moving
banger
Castle.
after banger after banger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this
So
is
it's
so
hard to-
influential,
yeah.
too. Like this
Kiki's
probably
Delivery
is-
Service.
Yeah, Kiki's is
sorry, go
fun.
ahead.
No, like I'm just thinking of influence, and I want to mention we did Mission Impossible last week, and I called out them stealing the little yellow car bit, and I didn't think that I would have 2 weeks in a row where there's action scenes in which planes are battling by crashing into each other in the air. But here we are
Yeah.
once again.
Again, something I don't think planes should do.
No.
That's a beautiful point, Mike. The influence of animation quote you just said or point you just said,
Mhm.
the 80s animation look of having the so defined background, because the planes of how stuff was made was still you were animating on a frontal plane, so you had these sort of like different textures right coming up in your animation.
Mhm.
Now, because of AutoCAD and stuff, everything's much flatter because you're sort of just building around, right? And you're just kind of moving clip art essentially, right? Is kind of how animation works now.
Yeah.
I'm just so nostalgic for it, and I miss it so fucking much that the sequences where it's just those backgrounds and it's just the completely still ohm slowly stretching out, right? And it's like
Yep.
that's the only motion you're getting in these little keyframe shots. I was like, I could watch this for a fucking hour, and it goes back to how you could take shrooms watching this movie, Jacob, because
Mhm.
again, it's just
Absolutely. Yeah, from the first
you're
scene,
seeing stuff you've never seen.
Yeah.
the scene with the
stunning.
ohm and everything and her in the jungle, it's the vibes are great. And like you said, you could make like a YouTube edit of this with some vaporwave music with just scenes of her in the jungle and stuff like that. Like it's so beautiful looking. And yeah, the music kicks in when she's trying to calm the ohm and stuff, and just immediately you're like, oh man, I'm so into this movie,
Yeah, it's a vibe, and I posted a short kind of review to my Instagram just randomly after I'd watched it, just initial thoughts, and I had multiple people, my friends, message me like, "Yo, I love Nausicaa. That was like my favorite when I was a kid. That movie rules. The
Oh, yeah.
music is great." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "You are all correct. This is great. Great to hear." And they're all
Absolutely.
correct. Yeah, so I like it
Yeah,
a lot.
welcome to the club, Mike.
Yeah, I'm doing Miyazaki stuff, so I'm happy to be here. On the great
I
journey.
I want to tell my sister to watch this movie, because even though it's not she doesn't, usually seek out things like this or anything, but I'm going to tell her to watch it because I think the main character reminds me so much of her. She loves animals. She has this connection with animals, just like Nausicaa. So I think she would really enjoy it.
Remember when that horse bit your sister really hard on her hand, and she just kept smiling, said, "Don't be afraid."
My sister did get bit by a horse once. Yeah.
Oh no, that would hurt real bad.
I bet.
Yeah,
Horses
yeah.
have big chompers.
It swole up and stuff, but my sister is a horse. She's what you might call a horse girl growing up. She rode horses a lot. She goes to horse shows and things like that. She just loves all kinds of animals. She recently has gotten into like collecting reptiles and things, where she has snakes, she has geckos, and she even got, so the only thing is, like, my sister, she's always had this fear of spiders, arachnophobia, right? She's always had crippling arachnophobia. And like, you might know people that are scared of spiders. My sister is like terrified of spiders. Like, if she sees one in the same room, she's just like not having it, right?
Yeah.
But recently she got a pet spider because she's like, I want to get over my fear of spiders. And so she actually got like a jumping spider in a little cage.
I wouldn't get a jumping spider as my first spider. That could spook you.
It's like a little guy.
No, I like
because they're kind of
spiders,
cute and harmless.
What's the lifespan we're talking about here?
I don't know. Probably not that long.
Probably like 40 years.
Some tarantulas live to be like 20 or something, I think, but don't quote me.
She's still not having tarantulas. She's not into that, but she used to be at a point where she'd be like, if she saw a spider, she'd be like, oh, kill it. And like have someone else. She didn't even like to kill it because she wanted someone else to do it. But I like that she's getting over her fear of spiders and trying to be like, you know what? They're just another one of
spider.
Yeah, they're just another one of God's creatures, and we have to respect them, just like we respect all creatures.
And that's exactly what this is. Look at the Ohm. They're pretty crazy looking, but you know what? We're going to respect them too. So I think she would resonate with the message of this movie.
Absolutely.
And one thing I forgot about this. You asked me what I was expecting going in earlier. What I was certainly not expecting in any way, shape, or form was for the opening card to be a recommendation from the World Wildlife Foundation saying, we endorse this movie.
This is a WWF movie, Mike, and we don't mean wrestling.
No. Like, does Disney
we love
have
this
a
movie
that's recommended by the World Wildlife Foundation?
That's
like,
right.
What?
Right.
Stop killing stuff.
Gully.
Yeah, maybe, take care of the environment. You know, James Cameron probably loves this movie.
Probably,
he probably does.
I'm anti-industrialist and I love the environment. Yeah.
Here's the last question I want to ask you guys, because I think this is, again, going back to the thesis of why we're covering this entire series, right? Yeah. What could AI come up with a character like Nausicaa?
It could steal one.
I don't think AI could come up with anything.
One.
Yeah. It can do a derivative version of a character that already exists.
All you little liars who go like, it's the same. What I'm doing is the same.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
No, we hate it. And of course, Miyazaki would not like it either. Because it's anti-human. It's anti-nature, right? But yeah, I'm sure like James Cameron, like a million people are inspired by Miyazaki. It's crazy because I used to I love this movie ever since I first saw it, but I always thought it's kind of talked about as lesser Miyazaki because it's one of his earliest films. It's not considered like in the same level as like your Princess Mononoke and your Spirited Away, where he would later be getting all this critical acclaim and things like that in the late 90s and 2000s, that he didn't have the sort of cultural cachet yet to where people are like, oh, you got to check out the latest Miyazaki, because he's just getting started, but he's already starting on such a strong foot that it's like, man, to go from here, it's like, where does it even go? And of course, Princess Mononoke, I can't wait to talk about that one too, because it shares a lot of the same themes and messaging of this movie. But I love this movie, and I love the aesthetic. I love the character of Nausicaa. Like, it's so good. It's
such a vibe. Like, there's people who don't watch movies made before the year 2000. You're wrong. Like, this is a vibe, dude. Please.
Such a bummer.
And it's got that 80s anime look to it, that 80s and 90s anime look that I love. That anime just doesn't look the same now because of the way that they use,
I'm
computers to animate
this
things.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we love the classics. Akira, this movie, like, it's just not the same anymore. And now I'm gonna be like Miyazaki and be like, the 20th century was better. Fuck the 21st century.
I'm scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smoking your 80th cigarette of the day.
I wish I could be a cat.
Yeah.
A hell of a movie, man. I always liked Miyazaki, like with the ones I've seen, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's so
Yeah,
good, he's so good." But I'm like, I think I'm buying in. Like 2 5 out of 5s, and the other ones that I've seen are
of
really,
course.
really good. Like, damn.
With
Yeah.
his first two
Um,
movies. This was before, of course, Studio Ghibli even is formed, but of
yeah,
course, due to the acclaim of this movie and the success, it would lead to him starting his own studio, Studio Ghibli. Um, yeah, so I've been watching those documentaries. I'm going to check out some more just so I can learn everything I can about Miyazaki. Uh, and I'm very excited to be doing this long form series that we're doing.
It's so
yeah.
cool.
I've seen, I watched all the Makoto Shinkai movies recently, and it's like a similar thing where he likes to explore the same themes throughout all of his filmography. So I'm looking forward to seeing
Yeah.
Miyazaki's version of that with the environmentalism,
Yeah,
Well,
pacifism,
you know,
anti-war.
in our former series, doing series, you'd get recurring characters. We're sacrificing that to zero in on a director's intrinsic, artistic vibe, and what we are going to get is those recurring themes, Mike. So that will
yeah.
be so cool to explore and see going forward.
Hmm.
It is crazy how like each of his movies are different. They have similar themes and stuff, and he always finds a way to sneak in some kind of flying. But there are very different kinds of movies.
And not a single sequel.
No,
Right.
no, and yeah, it's always original. Well, some of them are adaptations of other work, but like this is an adaptation of his own work that was original.
Hmm.
I believe Laputa Castle in the Sky is another adaptation
I believe it is a
of
book.
a manga, yeah, or a novel. Um, but yeah, I'm
From
looking
Studio
forward to
Ghibli,
that,
right.
and getting into the 90s, Miyazaki, Porco Rosso, another great flying
Better
movie.
be a pig than a fascist.
Can't wait to
Nice.
watch that. Yeah,
Do
so
you
many
think
good ones
Nausicaa
upcoming.
is a good name for my daughter, Nausicaa Brooks?
I do think so. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
inspired by the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey, in which there's a character named Nausicaa, right, out of Greek legend, I guess.
Hmm.
So that's where he got the name Nausicaa, which is interesting because obviously it's not a Japanese name. Um,
No, we're just getting
Also,
a lot
Nausicaa,
of fantasy names.
yeah, sort of a German inspired with the umlaut over the A, right?
Hmm.
Um, Voiced by in the Japanese version by Sumi Shimamoto,
Mm.
who was also did the voice of Clarice in Lupin, Castle of Cagliostro. So
Oh,
Miyazaki was impressed with her performance as Clarice, so he said, "You know what? You can be my Nausicaa."
So no repeat characters, but repeat actors. It's a Wes Anderson
that's
joint.
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool. That's a fun
there's
fact.
also a great scene in that documentary, The Land of Dreams and Madness, where he casts Hideyaki Anno to be the main character in The Wind Rises. And he's
He's
just
like,
like, oh,
no.
Anno, what an interesting thought. Anno doing the voice. So I can't wait. I just can't wait to get into more of his filmography. It's going to be
Again, I was
so much
like, I'd
fun.
rather kill myself, which I will
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Fun fact. Also, she did a voice in Princess Mononoke. So there you
Okay.
go.
Exciting
Yeah.
to see.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Let's
Well,
do
that
it.
was Nausicaa. We took a ride through the Valley of the Wind. We hope you did as well. We hope you check us out more at Normies_like_us on all social media. Rate, review, subscribe. Check us out on YouTube as well. Leave your thoughts on this long form series if you are following along. Are you watching the Miyazaki films? Did you have a good time with this one? Have you read the
Have you
manga?
seen it
Should we check
before?
that out?
Yeah. Is
Mm-hmm.
this your first time? And if so, welcome, because this is a movie that everyone should see, I think, and an underrated masterpiece. I do have a
Agree.
question though. How much would you guys love to have a little fox squirrel that sits
Uh,
on your shoulder and hangs out with you all the time?
Basically, Cookie and I's relationship is that big bite that she does at first of me being like, no, no, it's okay.
Yeah, just be
Yeah,
very
but
zen
I thought you were
about
going
it.
to say that in the glider. I will take both,
The
Jacob.
Yes, I
glider,
would take both.
could a glider like that work in real life where it
I
has sort of
don't
an
know.
engine to it where you can
I
kind of
don't.
launch yourself?
I don't know what video game it is, Mike. Maybe you'll know.
Hmm.
It's some sort of early Breath of Fire or maybe Ark the Lad, but it's a JRPG where a guy builds a solo plane like that. And ever since I saw that as a kid, I was like, I want something like that more than anything. I don't want to be a Tom
Ah,
Cruise. I don't want to fly a plane. I want a
On a little glider.
personal flying thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I want a little vehicle.
That's what
A T16
That's
back
what I
home
love
here.
about in our animation episode I was talking
So
about
impressive.
Treasure Planet, the commercial failure of a
A
Disney
solar
movie.
sail.
He's got he surfs the wind with like a solar sail surfboard, the main character. And I'm like, that's so cool. I wish I had one of those.
A very Nausicaa coded character, James,
Yeah.
whatever his name is. I'm sure it's well, whatever from the original, I guess,
Yeah.
right? James,
It's an adaptation of Treasure Island, obviously.
Yeah.
But a space sci-fi futuristic version. But anyway, the other thing about Nausicaa is that, like you said, Miyazaki never did a sequel. I'm kind of bummed because we never got a sequel to Nausicaa when, of course, there's so much more story in the manga that you
Yeah.
probably could make another feature film out of
What
it,
if
right?
that's what he retired on? That would be cool if he did like a Queen Nausicaa, like her as a
Ooh.
middle-aged woman or something.
That would be interesting.
You could see it
Yeah.
functioning as a meditation on his career from the first solo Nausicaa to everything that
Yeah.
he's done. So she's
The
looking back at
last.
her history from her first adventure.
Unfortunately, yeah, Boy and the Heron might be the one that he retires on, unfortunately, because the last two in his filmography were really meant to be his culmination of his entire career, like The Wind Rises and then Boy and the Heron. We came
Right.
out of retirement to do Boy and the Heron, but what a great career, and I'm excited to continue to talk about it. And we love Hayao Miyazaki,
Indeed. Arigato ne.
and we love Nausicaa.
Absolutely.
Nausicaa. All right. And we have been your hosts. This is Colin and
May-izaki.
This is Jakesica of the Valley of the Wind.
of the podcast.
And on my little glider of the podcast of the wind.
All right, make friends with bugs, people. Catch you next time.
That's right.
Gross. Bye.
Bye.